Hello! Welcome back to Full Time. I am Tamerra Griffin, and depending on where you are in the world, there's a chill in the air. I think we need to start adjusting to these darker days and the chaos that they bring, if you know what I mean, because that's right, it's playoff season. We're here. We've made it. Somehow, the regular season is over, and now there are 8 teams left fighting for one of 2 tickets to San Jose on November 22nd when we have the NWSL Championship. There's a lot of drama, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of popcorn that needs to be popped, snacks that need to be prepped, beverages that need to be poured between now and then, because this weekend we've got the quarterfinals. And it is going to be amazing. Can't miss. So much to unpack. Who we have our eye on, predictions that we have, players that we're going to be on the lookout for, players that might not even be on the pitch that we still need to talk about because that's going to affect things too. I don't even know where to begin. Meg, I have to bring you in, my co-host Meg Linehan, of course, because we are in it. My seat is buckled, like I'm locked in. Meg, how are you?
It's the Ayo Adibre meme of like the theater's kicking me out because I'm so seated, right?
Yes, yes. Iconic lines always from her.
What is going to be so interesting about this weekend, right? Like, I feel like decision day, everybody was a little whelmed heading into it just because we weren't expecting quite the chaos. Obviously, seeding was up for grabs. We knew Louisville, North Carolina were playing for that last spot. And then I feel like actually decision day, like it impressed me in the long run. And I do want to give a shout out to the NWSL, the multi-view on NWSL Plus. Very good. Very clutch. Came through. Like, worked super well. The ability to, like, mute a game and unmute a game. Like, A+ job there. I hate that it has to be on my laptop, but I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
Did Progress. What it needs to do.
Totally agree. Yeah, it felt like, it was definitely very different from Decision Day of 2 years ago in that, like you said, there weren't as many stakes that needed to be decided, but there was like a sophistication to it and if you've been following this league from the beginning or even like the latter half of the season, this is actually like pretty exciting for you. To the point about seeding and who gets to host, the tables flipped like pretty significantly, I would say, between like last weekend and Decision Day on Sunday. So there's still a lot to unpack there. Make sure that you listen to Full Time Review, the show that's already out that comes out on Mondays. I had a great conversation with Melanie and Zide and Asla Pellet about how everything broke down. But now that we're in playoffs, we need to break down a whole new table, a whole new bracket. And just to give you a sense of what that looks like if you were not already aware, we've got one game on Friday, November 7th between the Orlando Pride and Seattle Reign at 8 p.m. Eastern on Prime Video. 5 p.m. for my West Coast girlies. One game on Saturday, November 8th between the Washington Spirit, who are hosting Racing Louisville, first-time playoff team in club history, Racing Louisville. And that's going to be on CBS at noon Eastern. Early one for us, West Coast people. And then on Sunday, November 9th, there are 2 games. First, the Kansas City Current hosting Gotham FC, CPKC vibes, as you know. And then at 3 p.m. Eastern ABC, the Portland Thorns are hosting San Diego Wave. I love that, let's say 3 of the 4 of these games are in like super hyped, incredible venues. I think that's just going to add to the excitement about what these games will bring because as we know, knockout football hits different. Yeah, everything is up in the air now.
I am still not over that Portland Thorns, the Rose City Riveters, their TIFO for Decision Day. Thornies never say die. Like the execution of that was so amazing. I hope that they have enough in the tank to turn around another one after, suddenly moving into hosting a playoff game. But I do, between Rowdy Audi, CPKC, and Providence Park, like that's a pretty good lineup. And also all 3 of those games, CBS and 2 on ABC. What's pouring out for everybody who's on YouTube TV right now, who will not be watching it on YouTube TV, like the worst possible timing for a carriage dispute between YouTube and Disney. Hopefully you have an ESPN Plus hookup because things are going to need to happen in order to watch these games.
Yeah, I feel like we have a whole off-season episode space for what it takes to access this league from like a broadcast perspective and what it costs too, which is a whole other topic. Yep. But so many games, so many topics to delve into from each of these matchups. I know that from the beginning, the narrative that we had about the Kansas City Current is not the conversation that I think we're going to be having now as they head into the playoffs, potentially without Temwa Shawinga. And potentially without Bia Zanerato, based on how that last game went. And that's just like 2 topics of many that we are going to delve into. But before we do that, I have to make sure that you guys are following us on socials. Now, if you're taking a social media cleanse, love that for you, but please consider breaking it for this playoff season because I don't want you to miss anything. We have so many plans, so many content ideas, so much coverage that we're going to be posting, things that you won't even be hearing on this podcast, on Instagram and TikTok at TA Fulltime. Make sure that you're following us there. And like I said, we're always checking our DMs if you have thoughts, feelings about anything that you hear on this episode or episodes past about what we should be keeping an eye on with this postseason. As always, you can always reach out to us via email, fulltime@theathletic.com, with the same thoughts, feelings, questions. We love hearing from you and I've heard, been getting some really juicy questions and thoughts that we will almost certainly be addressing later when we have a chance to breathe. Now is not the time for breathing, though. It's just the time for soccer. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to dive into these quarterfinals, maybe with some predictions about going beyond that as well. And we're going to have a special guest. Okay, Meg, before we get into the 8 teams that have made it into the postseason, in the interest of inclusivity and acknowledgement, I think we need to pour one out, like you said earlier, for the teams that are not making it into the postseason, which honestly, it's sad, of course, but there's kind of a lot to say around these 6 teams that failed to break it into the playoffs. So to keep it brief, because this is a playoff episode, but to acknowledge them nonetheless, I think that we should go back and forth with each of these 6 teams and just share a few words, maybe 3, maybe 4 if you got to push it, about what sort of wrapping up the season and or giving a sense of what we want to manifest for them heading into 2026. So finishing in last place, 14th, the Chicago Stars. My 3 words for them: build around Jamise, parentheses Joseph, if you are not familiar. I think that she is a stellar young talent who has clearly shown her commitment to Chicago. She recently extended her contract, I believe, to 2028. We don't know what the future of Mallory Swanson is with this club. And yes, nobody would be remiss to sort of hang on to hopes of what that might look like. But I mean, Denver Summit is going to be a thing in 2026. Mallory's a Colorado native. Who knows what that might mean? But you have a Jamise Joseph at home who's been balling out. And I just think that with Ludmila being a little bit on the older side, Jamise, who has a great partnership with her, to me is a player that they need to be playing around. So those are my 3 words for Chicago. Meg, what are yours for Bay FC?
First of all, I just want to say we have Jamise Joseph at home is such a funny line. Bay FC, I think mine is just try again. This is a team that is now, again, in the middle of a rebuild process, and that a lot of that is happening off the field. Find a new head coach, I guess, could be another 4 words. We got Angela Salem at home.
I love it. All right, moving on to 12th, Utah Royals. Ooh, what did I say for them? Keep it going. My 3 words you can find in our newsletter, which you should also be subscribed to, by the way. It's free. Keep it going. This feels a bit like deja vu for Utah, who also ended last season on a pretty strong note. They've done that again. Recently upset the Washington Spirit in their last regular season game, which was at home. They are a very exciting team to watch. A lot of young talent, a lot of international talent. I've heard from several other NWSL coaches that Jimmy Kunratz is one of the best in the business. You just wouldn't necessarily know if you look at the table or their results. But if you look at the on-field product, there's a lot to be excited about. So I think, if anything, as long as they're able to just be consistent between the end of this season and the beginning of next, they'll be in a good position.
All right. Angel City, 11th. There's a lot that could be said about them, but for me, it's spend some money, because I feel like they're going to really need to go out and have a pretty aggressive offseason. Obviously, they have some of the pieces, right? That can't be denied, but you're losing a couple of really big veterans. They lost Alyssa Thompson. Money came in, you got to send some of that money right back out. Find some good players.
I like that. And I like the kind of the vibe of spending money in LA because that's what I always want to do when I'm there. So hopefully that shouldn't be too difficult for them.
All right, Tamerra, take us to Houston.
Okay, Houston. Glass half full were my 3 words. They didn't necessarily end the season on as strong of a note as I think they would have liked. There was a point maybe in the last handful of games that we wondered if they were going to be making a playoff push the way that North Carolina and Racing Louisville ended up successfully doing. But I personally feel a greater sense of optimism about this club and the direction that it's headed than I have in recent memory, especially when I think about players like Yasmin Ryan, Avery Patterson, Delaney Sheehan, Maggie Graham. There's a lot to be excited about, and it's not quite at the level of Utah Royals in terms of like the sporting and performances and consistency yet. But I do think that they have the pieces and are increasingly gathering the pieces to get there. So I think feeling optimistic about Houston is like saying a lot, given how they've struggled in the history of this league. And last but not least, Meg, North Carolina Courage at number 9.
Yeah, use it as fuel. Right? They came so close. It gives me such Orlando Pride vibes, right? That big decision day where they just missed out. They had won their game. They thought, okay, we've got a real shot. North Carolina dominated against Gotham, right? Like after that first half, after Manaka's performance, I was thinking like, even just kick Gotham out of the playoffs, like put North Carolina in, even though I just feel like for North Carolina, so much of what's happened has been outside of the team itself's control, like losing a head coach, making that move at such a strange time. Now I think there's going to be a lot of questions in this offseason because on the men's side of the program, that team is suddenly not going to play next year in USL. And I think there are going to be questions about the women's side and if they're going to get bought, relocated, who knows, right? So I think there's going to be a lot of off the field stuff, but this team at its core should be better than missing out on a playoff spot, and they just got to use it next year.
I agree. The Racing Louisville or North Carolina question heading into decision day ended up for me being a little bit more emotional than I was prepared to be experiencing, because when you look at where they are right now, both so much promise, and there's sort of like a weird brain gymnastics that I had to do knowing that North Carolina won handily until the last few minutes of the game when Gotham scored 2 goals to make it 3-2. But for them to win and still not make it is always a really devastating way to go out. So, but that's the way it goes. All right, we've given our flowers, laid to rest those 6 teams, so to speak, for the end of the season, but it's time to return to the 8 that are going to be playing in the playoffs. So in order to bring even more voices in, make sure that we are covering as many bases as possible, I am bringing our podcast producer, Theo Lloyd Hughes, onto the mic, on this side of the mic, on this side of the riverside.
Hello.
On this side of the
Hi, Theo. On this side of the river.
Yeah, this side of the river. Yeah,
Just around the riverside. Okay, sorry.
I love being there sometimes and then here other times. And for the listener, it must be a very transcendental experience between not quite knowing where I am.
I love it. How are you doing, Theo?
Good.
How are you feeling about playoffs?
Playoffs. They're great, aren't they? I've been quite interested in the concept of them as a European person. My ideal world would be chatting to some of the NWSL's new Europeans and hearing their thoughts on what the playoffs are. But I do love them. They are limitlessly exciting. I think you said knockout football, anything can happen earlier, Tamerra. And we love that, don't we? You never quite know in a knockout game.
Truly.
So very much looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to getting into it with you both. And why don't we crack on and zoom in on these quarterfinals, starting with heading to Florida, going to the East Coast. Number 4, Orlando Pride, hosting Seattle Reign. Seattle Reign, who've spent all week in Orlando, which is quite bizarre. I want to hear more thoughts about whether or not you would keep your team in Orlando all week. But Meg, let's start with you. Orlando, Seattle, maybe not the most exciting game of the 4, but where do you think this one will be won and lost? What are you looking for in this quarterfinal?
I mean, honestly, I'm always looking for Marta when it comes to Orlando, right? Like, I am a predictable human being. I understand that. But, I think she performs in big games. We saw that last year in the championship. This year's version of Orlando Pride feels so different from last year's version of Orlando Pride. And I think this one, this is the weird thing about this game, right? Is we saw this happen on decision day. And to be fair, I had this game up the entire time, and I think I glanced at it twice. Like it felt like one of the more questionable ones of decision day, which is unfortunate. And so to get it again with higher stakes, I think is going to be really, really interesting in terms of how these two teams, having just faced each other, play each other again. So for me, it's also a coaching matchup more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
T, I just want to pick something up on there. Meg spoke about Marta loves the big game, Copa America final still in everyone's minds. No Barbara Banda. Do you think that puts more pressure on Marta to play a starring role?
A bit. I do think that the Pride have benefited in the darkest, most unfortunate way from having had time in the regular season to adjust to Banda's absence, which ended up coinciding with the entry of Jackie Ovalle. Obviously, two different players, different positions, different responsibilities, but I think, if going back to sort of a glass half full perspective, have had just enough time, I think, to adjust both to what Jackie Ovalle brings and what they are no longer able to benefit from with Banda being out, to alleviate the pressure that Marta may have been facing if Jackie was not there, or if Banda's injury had happened closer to playoffs, if that makes sense. So I think they're just at the next phase of okay, I think we can do this. They've had a couple of wins since Banda, which I think have been tremendous for their confidence. But Seattle, they love to sit back. And I think that's part of what made that decision day game so easy to look away from, we'll say, and focus on the other 5 that were happening concurrently. But I think that this game is going to come down to a matter of individual brilliance and who is just going to be putting the team on my back. This might have to be a smash and grab. It might not be pretty, but we need to get it done. And it feels like Orlando has a little bit more of that. Obviously, I think the fact that they made that championship run last season, the muscle memory, I think, is going to be kicking in. But Marta in a postseason is just different, as we've seen.
A lot of muscle memory on that Seattle team, though, right? Meg, Fishlock, Barnes, Harvey, herself, they've been there. I know they've never won the thing. But do you think that muscle memory could be a factor for probably a team that most people aren't going to back to go any further?
I think it's both muscle memory, but you brought up Lou Barnes, and I think there's always the intangible of wanting to win for a retiring player. And Lou Barnes is at a level, right, where she's been there every single year. She's one of the OGs of this league. She's played every single game with Seattle. That is going to be a real motivating factor for Seattle, as much as, the fact that they've been in playoff games before, right? They know how to, and they also know how to play away. But for me, it's the Barnes emotional factor that we've seen that play out time and time again in this league.
I kind of teased it at the top, but Seattle have spent the whole week in Orlando. They had that final regular season game away there, and they decided not to travel back to Seattle. Tamerra, if you were the head coach of the Seattle Reign, would you do the same thing? And do you think that will factor into the game at all on Friday night?
I think it would have factored either way. And I'm kind of leaning towards staying. I do think that there is just enough of a gap to have gone back and forth. And when I think about the road trip I did with Bay FC, which was also to Orlando, I've really since been thinking a lot about sleep quality and performance and how you sort of the sort of abacus of balancing those things out. And as much as I understand the importance of being able to sleep in your own bed and how that how your quality of sleep benefits from that, I'm also thinking about what it means to be in a place, even if it's not home, and make it home. I think there's enough time for them to do that. I'm also thinking about the differences in climate. Seattle going into late-ish fall, early winter versus Orlando, which is basically probably feeling like summer-ish right now.
Endless summer down there.
What that does to the immune system, So I think I would also lean towards staying.
All right, I'm going to save your picks until the very end of when we got through all 4. So let's hold on the picks. But I'm going to ask you both to tell me if Orlando-Seattle was a takeout order, what takeout order would this game be if you had to metaphorically order this game?
You know I love this question.
So Mary, you go first.
So this is a little bit informed by the last time they played, i.e. Decision Day. But this game to me is like Domino's Pizza. It's the thing that you go to when there are too many.
Very similar vibe for mine. So go.
I love
go,
it.
go, go.
Okay.
Oh no.
I order Domino's when I'm in like a place that doesn't have too many other options around, but I need something solid. I need something reliable. I know that it's not going to be the best pizza I've ever had in my life. It's not going to be a transcendent experience, but it's going to be solid. It's going to fill my belly. Like I can add veggies on that thing to round it out and make it somewhat nutritious. But there will always be a little unspoken underwhelm there. That, and like I said, that is a little bit like me reacting to the Decision Day game. I don't necessarily think it's going to be that whelming, as you mentioned, Meg. But yeah, I'm feeling like this game is going to give Domino's Pizza.
Yeah, for me it was chicken tenders, so we're in the same vibe. Same vibe.
No, any particular establishment, Meg? We'll
No,
wait for a
I would
sponsor.
say,
We'll wait for a sponsor to jump in.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, not that chicken tenders are bad, right? Like it's the
I love
same
a chicken tender.
exact vibe, right? Like you go to it because you know what you're gonna get, and I think that's exactly going to be the vibe of this game. I think we know what the feel of this game is going to be, unless by some miracle we get a real, transcendent performance or NWSL chaos. So,
All right. Speaking of what we know, what we're going to get, Rowdy Audi on Saturday. The lunchtime kickoff, Washington Spirit hosting Racing Louisville in quarterfinal number 2. Really, really exciting one. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about Racing Louisville playing their first ever playoff game. And what a place to do it. You know, one of the best atmospheres in the country. And Meg, this is, I think Bev Yanez has been someone that we've really kind of triumphed on the show. We've talked about how great the job she's done there is. She's making history. By my account, I believe she's the first American head coach to take a playoff game in the NWSL since Cindy Parley-Cohn.
that is crazy.
Right?
Yep.
12 years. So
Yep.
I guess, there's no use kind of circling around it. This is a 2 seed versus 7 seed, a very experienced team that went to the final last year against a team playing in their first ever playoff game. Do you give Racing any chance in this game? And kind of, if so, how are they going to pull off the upset?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, this is one of those ones where, like, if you let emotions guide you, right? I think Racing is capable of pulling off an upset. For me, it's actually, I think, less about Racing. If they play their game, like, we know what they are capable of, and more about how many players are the Washington Spirit going to have available, right? Like, because that was the big question of Decision Day. They travel with so few. A lot of that was precautionary in order to have them ready for this playoff game. But if folks are not at 100%, right, this is the true test of the Washington Spirit's depth. And so I think Racing Louisville are at 100%, right? They're maybe at 110% just because of all the emotions and making that playoff run and having all this history behind them all of a sudden, and having Bev Yan. I mean, like, you look at the vibes on the field of Lynn Family Stadium on Decision Day, and it's just like you can feel that energy and knowing that this team can harness it and move along, but they have to face the Washington Spirit. But I think, to be fair, it's a more favorable matchup for them than KC ever would have been. So I think they're even going to take that and try to use that in their favor.
Yeah. I'm thinking also, though, about playoff experience and how Racing are not going to be in the advantage in that arena. I mean, I've been really, really impressed by the leadership and the impact of Janine Sonis's leadership on that team. And she, having come over from the Portland Thorns, playing with Canada, does have a lot of experience when it comes to knockout football. And I can only imagine how much she's going to be conveying and sort of guiding some of the younger players, those who've not played playoff football before. But playing your first playoff game at Rowdy Audi is gonna be tough. I mean, I just think about how, like, even on a regular postseason game, that stadium is 100% the 12th player. But in playoff season, I'm thinking about the Bay game. I'm thinking about the Gotham game from last season. Like, it's truly on another level. And so from a mental standpoint, I do think that Racing is going to have a pretty steep hurdle to overcome just to show up as themselves. At the same time, this is a team that's been through a lot this season, on and off the field. They've had to play without Savannah DeMello. She's had her medical incidents on the field to deal with. And that's just one issue. So they do have a lot of resilience at the same time. They are going to be happy to be there. And I'm also considering sort of like the freedom that sort of comes with, hey, we've never been here before. It's not that they have nothing to lose. Like, they definitely are going to play to win, which is, I think, part of their style that they've really embraced this season, to be a lot more on the front foot than I remember them being in the past. But that, I think that component, and that, like I said earlier, 3 of these 4 quarterfinals are in like proper environments in terms of what the fans and supporters bring. And on the flip side, the Spirit are just going to be feeding off of that. I think no matter who's on the bench, no matter who's available to start.
I mean, I think the fact that Racing, the last time they went to Audi, got a 2-2 result, right? Like, I mean, they haven't beaten the Spirit, I think, yet in years, but at the same time, I think they can look back. They're going to have film, right, that they can go. They know the environment. I think, yes, Adrian not having coached playoff game, but then that's matched by Bev Yanas. But Bev has obviously been, I think, in at least 4 rounds of playoff games, right? She's been to NWSL championships. So I think even if it's like muscle memory as a player, that will help benefit Louisville with her as a head coach. So in the long run, maybe some of that stuff washes out. But to be fair, I mean, I think about every player that I've ever talked to when they talk about their favorite environments, like Marta, for instance. She says her favorite place to play is Portland because they're loud and she uses that as fuel.
Yeah.
So as much as it's going to benefit the Spirit, it could just as much benefit Racing Louisville if they use it as fuel and understand, like, okay, we just have to embrace this underdog mentality and go for it.
Can I just say that if any Racing player scores a goal and then shushes the Spirit Squadron, I will buy your jersey. I love a good shush. I love a troll.
Especially
we need more trolls
shush.
in the league. A playoff shush. You have to win the game. If you lose the game, it doesn't quite work.
Yeah.
You can't be like 4-0 down. But,
Yeah.
Right.
all right, before we move on to the next one, I need a takeout order for Washington Spirit versus Racing for both of you.
Okay, this one for me is, now, whether it's green, yellow, red, dealer's choice, but this one for me is like a Thai curry.
Oh my God, I was going to say Thai food.
Really? I love it. Wow, we're really linked.
We've got the brains
Hive
on.
mind. Playoff hive
Playoff
mind
brain.
is going on full time.
Playoff brain. I love it. I was just going to add specifically Thai curry from a mom and pop shop, and you've requested 4 chili peppers on the spice scale. And you know what? I'm using coded language, but hopefully you know what I mean when I say mom and pop shop.
Yeah.
This is not like mall food court Thai food, if you know what I mean.
No, they look at you and they're like, do you want the real menu?
Yes.
Or
They might slide you like a liability form just in case type of thing, because this one's going to be spicy. These 2 teams are known to get stuck in, especially Racing Louisville. I surprisingly learned from you, Meg, that they are not leading the league in yellow cards, but spiritually it very much feels like they do. And they're going to play to get stuck in. There's going to be a lot of pressing, I think, because there's a spot in the semifinals on the line. But I think this is going to be one of the more exciting games in terms of the level of entertainment that we see on the pitch. So it's going to make us sweat like 4 chili peppers from mom and pop shop would.
Yeah, I mean, I had Thai food on my little list of mental notes. So I agree. I think this is potentially going to be the spiciest game of the weekend.
Spiciest game. Everyone will be tuned in lunchtime on CBS. All right, quarterfinal number 3, KC Current. We're heading to CP Casey Stadium. By the time this game kicks off, KC Current versus Gotham FC, it'll be 490 days since the KC Current have lost at home. Just let that sink in. The KC Current finished 29 points ahead of Gotham FC. This is the 1 seed versus the 8 seed. Tamerra, we just talked about an underdog upset. Is there any point in playing this game? Should we just give KC the spot in the semifinals now? Walk me through what we're going to see on Sunday lunchtime.
So this will be reflected when we get to the takeout order question of this game, but I really think that it's going to depend almost entirely on which version of Gotham FC shows up to this game. If they show up the way that they did against the North Carolina Courage, I think that it's not going to be entertaining for anyone or even really fun to watch because they looked listless, they looked heavy-legged, a little bit directionless at times, almost like I'm just here so I don't get fined energy, honestly, especially in that first half. And Gotham has really been up and down, like throughout the whole season. But when I think about this matchup as the 2023 NWSL champions, obviously with a very different roster, versus a, superlative number one Shield winner from this season, going back to what we said about muscle memory, and, they do have personnel who are very familiar with these big games. I really want this to be an interesting one. I'm actually going to be at that game, so I'm very excited. KC Current, also speaking of inconsistency, at least in the last two games, conceding first at home, like by their standards, is kind of crazy. It was their first full game without Tamerra and Meg, who may or may not be featuring against Gotham. Bia Zanarado went down. I know head coach Vlatko Ananovsky described them both as day-to-day. I'm not expecting us to get too much more information about that between now and kickoff because it is playoff season. But the Current are also in a period of adjustment. We were talking about the Pride and learning how to play without Banda. The Current are very much still learning to play without Temwa. And as important as I think Nichelle Prince's game-winning goal was against the San Diego Wave in that decision day match, she's not yet had to play a full 90. She came on to replace Bia Zanarado the same way she did with Temwa Shawinga when she went down against the Houston Dash. So I'm going to be very curious to see what she does if she starts and is expected to play a full 90. But the Current are vulnerable. Gotham obviously needs to be looking to take advantage of that. But like I said, that inconsistency makes me unsure.
I mean, I think it's up to Rose Lavelle, right? Like we talk about individual players. Rose Lavelle, I think, has obviously been in really good form as of late, has scored some absolute worldies. I mean, if they're able to get her some free kicks, then I think anything's on the table. Both of these teams have looked human, right? Over the past few weeks, Gotham a lot more so than KC, but KC has at least, they're not a perfect team. As incredible as their record has been, they are not a perfect team either. And so I think KC, for me, the player that I'll be watching is Dabinia in terms of how much slack she picks up. And, that is a player who absolutely knows big games. And then on Gotham's side, it's Roosevelt. And how successful those two respective players are, for me, is maybe where that game is won or lost.
Wouldn't it be crazy if we were able to let's just say this game, extra time, still drawn, instead of penalties, could you imagine like a free kickoff between Dabinia and Rose Lavelle? Because they both scored recent free kick bangers, which is kind of crazy to think about.
NWSL HQ, make it happen. Still time. Change the rule book. The competition rules can be changed, people. The playoffs have not started
Sports
yet.
Center would eat that up. Just saying.
Hey, this
Top
game's
10.
on ABC. Sports Center can make it happen. Before I ask you to take out orders, a couple of quick facts I found, which are quite fun. Gotham have never beaten the KC Current in 10 meetings, which I thought was a bit surprising. That's 10 NWSL meetings. They also have a Summer Cup final meeting from last year, where KC Current won 2-0, braced by Tamerra Chawinga. And Carlos Amaros has never beaten Vlatko Adanovsky as a head coach, obviously, because they've only played each other in the NWSL. But sort of fun little things to watch there. Meg, what's your takeout order? KC Current versus Gotham FC.
For me, I was trying to think of like an ice cream with one of those shell coatings on top, right? Where like you crack it and then it's kind of soft and delicious underneath, but also like for me, this is both teams are vulnerable, right? Like they appear firm on the outside and then maybe you crack through. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to take the metaphor way too far.
No, I love it. That's the only direction I like metaphors to go, personally.
Okay, Tamerra, your turn.
There is actually still a bit of a parallel there. I'm a savory girl, so I'm going to be hard-pressed to choose a dessert. But I did stick with the theme of, like, outer versus inner, and I went with dumplings. Oh. But let's say, because, you never just order one type of dumpling. Let's say there's a couple of different soup dumplings that we wanted, but the restaurant forgot to label them. So you got to bite into them or, drain them however you want to find out what's inside, because I really do think this game could go either way. We just got to take a bite or like puncture that little hole if they are soup dumplings, if you know, you know, and find out what's inside. I'm getting hungry.
Let us know your favorite surprise soup dumpling restaurant full-time at theathletic.com. If your restaurant does not label their dumplings, please get in touch with us. Quarterfinal number 4. Here we go. We're going back off to the West Coast. What I think is the best soccer stadium in the United States. We're at Providence Park, the Portland Thorns versus the San Diego Wave. I think I'm less excited about this quarterfinal than you two, so I'm really excited to hear what you've got to say. Let's start with the Thorns, the home team. Very good at home. They went 10 games unbeaten at home this year. I think they have the second best home record in the country. Are we underrating them? You know, they finished third in the table. The table doesn't lie, but I feel like this is not the vibe of like the third best team in the NWSL. Tamerra, am I out? Am I wrong on that feeling? Or do we deserve to give the Thorns more respect? What's going on here?
No, I'm kind of with you. I think, and feel free to come for me, Thorns fans. I can handle it. When Decision Day was done and I saw that the Thorns finished third, I was a little baffled. And maybe this is a little bit of bias of how we have been speaking about this team all season, knowing that they were not going to be with Sophia Wilson. No, like we had conversations about the level of responsibility that Sam Coffey was going to need to shoulder, you know, in their first full season without Christine Sinclair, Becky Sauerbrunn, the leadership responsibilities, as players like Jessie Fleming are sort of still, I think, especially at the start of the season, settling into those roles. And then Hina Sugita got traded to Angel City, right when that, to me, midfield was beginning to sort of gel. They've also dealt with a lot of injuries to the young players that they did bring in to sort of replace the outgoing veterans or absent ones in the case of Sophia. Kaya Hanks, I was devastated. She had just scored her first professional goal when she did her ACL. Julie Dufour, also coming over from Angel City, injured. Pietra Torden was like a last-minute withdrawal even from their last regular season game. These are young players with high ceilings who were really exciting to watch at times that they have been without, and yet they're finding out a way. So I am like aware of that. And I think just with the culture of that club, things like that, being able to, you know, end the season with a pretty like decisive win is important. And I think it will sort of carry them into the postseason. Obviously playing at home is going to benefit them hugely. But the San Diego Wave are on an upward swing. I know we're not focusing on them just yet, but it's going to be a tough order, I think. I don't know if they're going to be able to pull it off, personally.
The Wave are interesting. Wave by name, Wave by nature, right? They had a big crest at the beginning of the season. It kind of came crashing down. Meg, do you take a poor second half of the season? Do you take that into stock when you're trying to grade the Wave here, coming in as the 6th seed going to Portland? How much do you look at their kind of better first half of the season versus the second half of the season where they were worse? Like, does that mean something to you? Who are the San Diego Wave right now?
I mean, that's a great question because I don't really have the answer, right? I mean, I think for San Diego, their momentum has been really wonky heading into the playoffs, just in terms of, we couldn't stop talking about Idaval coming to the league and immediately grasping the ins and outs of the NWSL, and then they so dramatically dropped off in the second half of this year and falling to 6th place, right? And to be fair, when you look at the table for the NWSL, and I think this is the same issue that the Thorns are facing, there's KC and then there's literally everyone else. Like maybe there's KC, DC, and then that whole middle chunk. And now I think, the fact that Racing finished 7th ahead of Gotham, maybe there is that lower tier, but the Thorns, Orlando, Seattle, Wave are kind of all in this weird middle block of like, do we actually know what this team is about right now? Because they have all been like, I think Portland has at least been consistent in how they have played for the most part. Like Portland's problems are Portland's problems, and we kind of have a sense of what their general trend is. So maybe that's why they do deserve 3rd place. But for everyone else, I'm just kind of like, you've all had these weird seasons where like anything can happen. So like, yeah, do I think Wave could be the upset of this quarterfinal bracket? Sure. But do I think they have enough juice in the tank to go into Portland and steal it from under them? I would happily believe that they don't. So this to me is the one that feels hardest to like predict one way or the other. I kept thinking too, like, I was like, oh, there's a weak side of the bracket and a strong side of the bracket, but literally there's only a strong side of the bracket because Casey's on one side of the bracket. Everyone else, I'm just like, whatever, man. Like, whatever.
Just happy that you're here.
Yeah.
Racing and the San Diego Wave finished on the same amount of points, 37, but it does not feel like we talk about it that way.
No.
Not at all.
You know what I mean?
No.
So that is like, keep that in mind, listener and everyone else listening out there. Takeout orders. Portland Thorns versus San Diego Wave. Then we're going to get to our bracket picks. Who started last time? Where are we going? T?
I can't remember.
Yeah. Tamerra, go for
what's
it.
your takeout order, Portland, San Diego?
This one was actually really hard for me to come up with, and I fear that I'm going to reveal some California bias here, but there's reason for it. I am calling this one a burrito. San Diego, if you are not aware, is famous for the California burrito, which has French fries inside. Highly recommend. They're delicious. But that's not why I'm choosing a burrito. It's sort of coming from the same place that the Domino's order I assigned to the Reign Pride game, in that if you're, depending on where you are in the country, but let's just say you're on the West Coast, when you order burrito, you pretty much know what you're going to get. You know it's going to be delicious. I honestly, from a sporting side, am very excited about this game. I think when the San Diego Wave are on, and yes, they've been inconsistent, they're a joy to watch. And I think especially since Eugenia has arrived in San Diego, she has revived this team in ways that make me want to create like a specific MVP award for like, since you got here, my life has never been the same type of thing. I don't know, honestly, that the Wave would have made it into the postseason without her. I mean, she scored within, the first 8 minutes against Kansas City. She's had so many goal contributions, even when she's not actually scoring, but she has been doing a lot of that as well. And I think historically, the Portland Thorns, this season, they've been pretty vulnerable at the back. And so I think that she's going to be asking a lot of questions of them. I think it's going to be delicious, basically. Like, in a very low-key way, this is the game that I am actually most excited about, just the same way I am when I order a burrito. So that's my takeout order for this game.
I had a poo-poo platter from your local Chinese spot, right? Where, again, like, it's right there. A little bit of everything, right? Like, you can have a crab rangoon, you can have an egg roll, you can have a beef teriyaki. Like, I think we're going to see, a little bit of everything with this game, where Portland occasionally allows chaos and also can bring the chaos. And San Diego, I mean, to your point, the Diego, like, that was a one-woman show. So I don't know if we're going to see, like, beautiful, comprehensive team performances here, but we're going to see players step up one way or the other.
All right, you've heard us talk about all 8 teams, dive and sink our teeth into all 4 games. Now, Meg, Tamerra, I've got to ask you for your picks, your bracket sketches. Meg, I'm going to start with you. Semi-final number 1, who do you have in that one? That's the Washington, Racing Louisville, Orlando, Seattle side.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm actually just going to be pretty boring. I do think we're going to see a repeat in general of the top seeds going through. I think there's absolutely a chance that we're going to get an upset, but Washington is too good a team, has the home advantage, and Orlando, I think, is peaking at the right time as opposed to whatever Seattle has going on. So for me, momentum-wise, even with Washington's loss to Utah, which was strange, for me, it's going to be Washington, Orlando.
I'm inclined to agree, not to make it uninteresting. I think Orlando are going to benefit from having been home the past. Will be 2 weeks by the time this quarterfinal takes place. I think that, like I said earlier, the muscle memory is going to benefit them greatly. It's easier for me to imagine them pulling it off than Seattle overcoming, like you said, Meg, everything that's going on with them to get this win. And as entertaining as I think Spirit Racing is going to be, again, the home field advantage with Spirit. Sofia Cantore, this is going to be her first, proper American playoff. She's already been popping off with back heel goals and stuff. I mean, I feel like she's going to be sort of on a Marta level in terms of just dazzling football. And it's harder to imagine them losing. So I'm mirroring your answers, Meg, for that one.
All right, T, we'll throw it to you for the second semi-final first then. This is the KC Gotham, Portland, San Diego side. Who do you have in the second semi-final?
Ooh, I think the upset in these quarterfinals for me is going to be Wave Portland. Yeah.
California bias.
But I am a NorCal girl, so it takes a lot for me to endorse Southern California. But when you make it regional, then yes, it's all California.
So it's either California bias or North Cal mutiny. We're not sure which, but it's bad.
Exactly.
It's bad, people.
I just feel like San Diego has a higher ceiling, and in the last few games, even though they lost ultimately after being up ahead to the Kansas City Current, I think that they have shown themselves what they're capable of, and they do still, to me, feel like they are cresting. The Portland Thorns, I think, have just been a little bit too inconsistent, especially when it comes to scoring. Like I said, they've been vulnerable at the back, and I think that the sort of gap between like San Diego's best possible performance and Portland's, even with the benefit of playing at home, is still going to be tilting in San Diego's favor. So I'm going San Diego. Gotham Current, the more that I think about it.
No.
I mean, let me not think about it too much. But I feel like the White Claw meme of the chick who's like, actually, no. But
you need an answer.
Okay, yeah, Current. But I can see this one going down to penalties, or if we have our way, free kickies. Sorry, it's playoff brain. I'm going crazy already.
I mean, I still think it's probably going to be KC Portland. I do agree with you, Tamerra, that Portland San Diego feels like the game most likely to have an upset. Gotham has had just such a weird season that I cannot see them going into CPKC. Like, even if Temwa does not play, even if Bia does not play, like, there is something mythical building about that stadium right at the moment, and knowing that they've got, their own destiny in their own stadium. To me, like, I think Gotham could absolutely make it a good game. It's not that I'm ruling out, like, just for me in terms of upset, that feels like the least likely. And I think that would have been the case no matter who ended up going to KC. Like, KC, for the past how many weeks now have we been asking, how do you even beat the Kansas City Current? And that question to me still feels like a valid one.
Question is, get them down to Houston and have Temwa Chawinga go off with an injury.
Right, truly.
That's your answer.
Houston has all the notes.
Dash, you can enjoy that one. Meg, I'm going to stick with you. I've got to ask for your pick to make it through to the final. So in your world, in Meg's world, it's KC versus Portland and Spirit versus Pride. Who do you have in going forward from those semifinals to the final in San Jose?
I mean, the story of this season tells us it's going to be KC Washington. I mean, what a story it would be, too, if it's KC Washington and you get the return of Temwa and Trinity Rodman in the final, right? Like, I mean, we've got some, like, real potential here for some absolutely bonkers final stories coming in. But those were the two best teams of the season. And to be fair, like, that's the, I guess, beauty of the playoffs is, like, that never actually matters, right? It is now, like, you win or go home. But for me, I think it should be the two best teams of this year, right? Now, in an alternate universe, there is also a part of me that is rooting silently for a Cascadia final, which we have not experienced, like a Portland-Seattle final, to be fair. Like, I think
that's spicy.
That's my alternate universe take, where we get some strange journey to this final.
Unlabel your dumplings, people. That's exciting.
Right. But just, we've never gotten a Cascadia final, and I would like to see it. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm here for it. Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of the 0-0 draw between the Spirit and KC Current earlier in the season. Yes, Spirit had the red card, and there is, I think, going to be that lingering question of what could have been, because we were all hyped for that game. There's something satisfying about being able to finally get an answer to that question now, like, especially this late in the season when all the team's powers have, theoretically combined. And it's, when you really pan out, it's hard to imagine any other meeting at the championship. I just remember watching Washington Spirit at that Oracle game against Bay FC and thinking to myself then, because it's always different when you're there watching a team, but I had the thought then like, oh, they can take it. They can take it. And that was back when Trinity was still sort of like making her way back. She wasn't even playing full 90s then. Even then, there's a crispness and confidence to that team. The depth, I think depth, the depth factor in the postseason.
And the fact that they've just had like no consistent lineups ever and they've still managed to get it done, right? Like that to me is another, sorry to interrupt you, Tamerra, but like I 100% agree with you in that they have been forced to play so many different lineups. They've been forced to play players in like strange, they've thrown everything at the wall this year. And ultimately, I think that only benefits you in a postseason run because you can throw anything at the wall when you're forced into that, whether you want it or not. Like they've already had that pressure that feels like a postseason pressure thrown at them, and they have finished second.
100%. And I actually think that head coach Adrian Gonzalez likes to play that way. Friend of the pod, Andre Carlisle, I've heard him in the press conferences being like, dude, what is the plan? What is the strategy? What is the approach? Like, what is your style? And Adrian is always like fluidly, ironically, like sidestepping the question. So I do think my short answer is same. Kansas City Current, Washington Spirit, I think are going to meet in the final. And honestly, I hope they do. I think that's what we sort of deserve after this season that we've had. But when I think about the coaching dynamic in a game like that, I think it gets really interesting because Theo, I think you were the one who made this point about how the Spirit are the only team that they're the most sort of fluid team.
I may have said that.
You made, yeah, no, I think you should say it. I'm not going to paraphrase it well.
I say a lot of things. I don't remember saying that. I think what I was saying to you, which I think was off air, I think it was after we wrapped the last podcast, is that I felt like in the playoffs, you're going to get a lot of people. And I remember watching the people do this to the Pride last year, especially in the final, right? That final Washington Spirit versus the Pride. You're going to get teams tactically try to set up to reduce what other teams do well. So off-ball teams will be given the ball and they'll say, hey, come and beat us. We know, like Casey Current, right? We know how good they are at counterattacking. Teams are not going to let them counterattack, and then you're going to have to see what happens when they possess the ball more than 55% or something, when they're probably used to having more like 51 or less. If they score early, other teams get more ball, right? My point, which I was making to you, Tamerra, is that the Spirit know how to play in different ways. They're the most fluid team, and that means they're more... And it's the same with the lineups, like Meg was saying. Like, they're more ready for what gets thrown at them in a game. And even last year's playoff run, right, under Geraldo's, they were missing so many players, and Rodman wasn't fully fit, and
Andy going down,
right before the play. Like they are used to basically like taking everything in stride, and that's tactically, that's the way they're set up, that's with their availability. And I think there is, I don't know, my gut feeling is I think Spirit will get to the final. I could even see them winning the whole thing, but we're going to save more takes on winning the whole thing till we do know who's in it. So I think it's a good place to put the pin in what it seems like we're all kind of predicting a KC Spirit final, and we'll all be there in San Jose to hopefully enjoy it, or enjoy all the teams that upset. The Racing Louisville, San Diego away final. Maybe we'll be sitting down for that. So this has been your robust playoff, big fat playoff preview that we all really enjoyed. I'm going to get out of here and let you two end the pod.
Always a joy to have Theo on this side of the river side. That was lengthy but necessary because there's a lot to consider with these games, Meg. But before we get out of here, because it is playoff season and we are building traditions on this show, we are very excited to announce the return of the bingo card. Yeah.
Yes. And we are also, I think, going to finally have like our own versions of it's all going to be the same things, but we're actually going to formulate it like bingo, so that way we might actually get a winner on the show. But obviously, like, we want you to play along, so you can head to our social channels. You can go find the Tamerra card, the Meg card, producer Theo card, whoever else we drag into this. But like, we actually want to turn it into a game rather than just like checking things off. And to be fair, this year we're leaving Hal Hirschfeld out of it. God bless you for your service last year.
Memories.
But we want to try to, don't worry, we have a new victim to rope into this idea. You'll see it when you see it.
a few, actually, because there have been some characters this season, okay? This is our way of sort of honoring that and just the chaos that we are kind of manifesting, I think, potentially with this bingo card.
We always want chaos. Let's be real.
And for the extra creative souls out there, we will also be distributing a blank card on social. If you want to fill in your own, maybe you want like a team specific bingo card, or you want it to be thematic and only talk about sporting stuff or only off the field stuff, whatever floats your boat. It's all welcome. So we just want you to participate, because I think with the chaos comes like the need for community so that we can get through this together. I don't know. Sometimes I just need like spiritual hand holding for some of these games and the things that might happen in between them. So make sure that you're following us. We don't want you to miss out on bingo at TA Fulltime on TikTok and Instagram. Of course, make sure that you are talking to us and however it makes sense for you. So email, I mentioned the newsletter as well. Make sure that you're signed up for that. It's free. And we, in addition to podcasting, are still doing a lot of writing because there's always so much to cover, especially at the end of the season.
Those deadlines, man, they're killing me.
Truly. Send us healing vibes because we're surviving.
Send us soup dumplings, Yeah,
labeled or unlabeled. I just want the dumplings. In case you didn't know, The Athletic has partnered with Yahoo Sports to deliver the very best coverage of women's sports in the Women's Sports Hub, which I encourage you to check out. sports.yahoo.com/women-sports. The link, of course, will be in the show notes for that.
I am Meg Linehan. You can find me on Instagram, on Blue Sky. People have been asking me to come back to Threads. I'm thinking about it. Let me know if you're on Threads. I feel like I forget it exists sometimes, but if you're there, I want to know. Plus a friendly reminder that you can always watch your favorite full-time episodes on YouTube, including this one at The Athletic Fulltime, and you can give us a like and subscribe.
I am Tamerra Griffin. I need to sort of like switch out my wardrobe because it's been chilly for 2 whole days in California. So it's basically a blizzard over here.
The puffer jackets are out.
I actually still, another tradition that I've been building, I keep some of the confetti from NWSL championships, and I had to wear my winter coat from last championship, stuck my hand in my pocket, and I had some gold confetti. So I'm excited to add to that at the end of the month. But follow me on Instagram and Blue Sky. Theoretically, I'd be checking it, but I just haven't been posting yet. Full-time is not possible without podcast producer Theo Lloyd Hughes. Shout out to him for coming up with that takeout order question.
So good.
Chef's kiss.
Now we're both hungry, though. So, double-edged sword, Theo.
Yes. Our video producer, Leah Griffin, and our executive producer, Emily Olson. Thank you so much for listening. Lock in. It's playoff season. And we'll see you next week.